Yeah.
Let's go to the AFC West. Maybe the most exciting, well, not maybe, was the most exciting offense in the league last year, Pat. The Kansas City Chiefs, how will they follow it up with year 2 as Patrick Mahomes as a starter with Andy Reid?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, well, of course, Tyreek Hill's status is the question. We don't know that yet. But beyond Tyreek Hill, the question for the Chiefs offense is Damian Williams really going to lead this backfield? It's been one of the fiercest debates on Twitter. There's kind of like sharps on both sides. A lot of people can't believe there are people fading Damian Williams, like we're ignoring obvious signs. And other people like me are truthing Damian Williams, who's a 27-year-old who has never even hit 50 career carries. He's been a committee back going back to his days in college. And you were talking about a coach in Andy Reid who has trouble committing to Hall of Fame level running backs. He had trouble committing to Brian Westbrook sometimes on a weekly basis. Had trouble committing to LaShawn
Was it Corral
McCoy.
Balcalter was the other running back with?
I cannot remember.
Brian Westbrook, is that right?
Yeah, coach who has trouble committing to LaShawn McCoy, Brian Westbrook, even Kareem Hunt at times. And if Damian Williams, doesn't bust some big plays early in the game, is Andy Reid really going to stick with Damian Williams? And I think he got a signing bonus last December, but Carlos Hyde is actually due more of his salary is guaranteed than Damian Williams is this season. Not that Damian Williams is going to get cut, but the investment in Damian Williams is very modest, and they're paying the kind of lip service that is very easy to pay to a player in the offseason. And I just have very strong doubts that Damian Williams is actually going to be a clear-cut lead back.
I have very strong doubts that Carlos Hyde is going to be anyone important in fantasy football next year. I don't believe in this. He was terrible with the Jaguars, terrible with the Browns.
Didn't score a touchdown in Jacksonville.
No, he's a big dude, and but he doesn't know how to use his
definition of a plotter.
But I mean, what's the real difference between Damian Williams and Carlos Hyde? I mean, can you say for certain that Damian Williams is a more talented player than Carlos Hyde? Carlos Hyde is also proven he can catch a pass.
3 touchdowns against New England.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a good game every now and then, especially in a lead offense.
He had multiple good games in a row.
And the Chiefs also have plenty of dart throw types. I mean, there was a Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson.
Yep.
So, I mean, this basically, I think this is a situation that's going to prove very frustrating.
But we know it's going to be a good offense and that they're going to be goal line carries. So if he wins it, he will flirt with RB1 relevance.
I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Andy Reid do something super annoying, like make Carlos Hyde his goal line back.
Just a stud.
Average 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
And running back talent does matter, but more importantly, it's positive game script and it's a good offensive line. And at least the Chiefs had those last year, and maybe they will this year as well. All right, let's go over to Nick Minzio, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, we saw Melvin Gordon last year. I mean, legit RB1, top 5 running back when he's healthy, but you saw those knees give out a little bit at the end of last year. So I'm really concerned. I don't know is he going to see that workload this year, that RB1 elite fantasy RB1 workload that we're used to seeing, or is Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson gonna get some more run than they've typically been getting in the past couple of years?
The Chargers are good at football, but they're never at the front of my brain when I think about the NFL. Does that make sense? Because
they do play in a soccer stadium.
Maybe that's it. But this is also a team that, again, you look top to bottom in talent, Nick. It's loaded.
Yeah.
And they even have players that didn't show a lot in their rookie seasons that are now emerging, like Mike Williams, who's going to take on a much bigger role without Tyrell Williams. And then with Melvin Gordon, we saw Austin Eckler, we've seen Justin Jackson, so at least they have some depth there. This is a very, very deep team.
Austin Eckler was Pro Football Focus's #1 running back last year, and he was not last year. It was at midseason when he was actually getting more workload, more touches per game than he actually got at the second half of the season. So, I mean, this dude's a player. I think he can
very good on the receiving end.
Yeah, he can chip into this Melvin Gordon.
And what I remember, if my memory is correct, with Melvin Gordon is so many of his solid plays were 10 yards and in, and just getting over that goal line and scoring just a boatload of touchdowns.
Kind of like Leonard Fournette.
Kind of like Leonard, except good.
Right.
Melvin Gordon is good.
That was up for debate at this point in Leonard Fournette's career. I remember talking about Melvin Gordon. Is Melvin Gordon even good?
He didn't score a touchdown his rookie year. Yeah.
He did finally go over 5. He was finally a little more efficient last year, went over 5 yards per carry, which can be fluky. But he's never stayed healthy. So there are two schools of thought on will Melvin Gordon continue to see that workload this year. He hasn't been extended, so do they have that belief in him? But that's nothing uncommon in a running back. And you could almost look at it as a positive for fantasy, which you hate to say for Melvin Gordon, but it could be they're going to run him into the ground this year and let him go to free agency next year. And like Nick said, he has one of the most proven backups in the league at this point. And so maybe you could see in an effort to keep him more healthy, like more of a true. Obviously, it was kind of a committee last year. Not committee's too strong a word.
But they run like
two-back.
these function plays with Austin Eckler,
yeah.
right? These designated touch plays.
So I could see it going either way. My guess is that it'll be like kind of the same workload we're used to seeing because he's going into a contract year. They'll worry about that when they get there, and if he's still standing, maybe they'll re-sign him. Turning
to Jesse Pantusco for the Denver Broncos and John Elway, a loyal Rotoworld football podcast listener, I might add, each and every time. We can still, be a little negative with Mr. Elway. He's on to another quarterback here with the Broncos, this time going from Case Keenum to Joe Flacco.
Well, yeah, that's my question is going to be how long a leash does Joe Flacco have? Because they signed him as basically to be a stopgap, which is kind of like what he was in Baltimore, and now they've drafted a quarterback in Drew Luck, who I think has a lot of flaws, but in my estimation, just watching him was one of probably the best deep passer in college last year in terms of his arm and accuracy. So yeah, I think Flacco has entered a situation that is very similar to the one he just left in Baltimore, and I'm interested to see how long until they make that move. I think it's going to happen mid-season.
I mean, Joe Flacco's not good.
No,
it's that
all
simple.
He did in Baltimore by the end was just throw to tight ends, bunch of checkdowns.
He's been legitimately one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL the past 4 or 5 years.
He's a big name, though.
He needs the utmost protection to even survive in today's NFL. Like, this dude can't move. His knee was shredded a couple years ago. He didn't have any movement skills before then. It's just gotten worse since then.
He's the kind of guy, like, if you sort his multi-year stats on Pro Football Reference or Pro Football Focus, doesn't really matter what the metric is. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL for almost the past half decade. He will get benched at some point, probably sooner rather than later. But it's not going to be a good situation for the Broncos. I'm a University of Missouri graduate. I've seen every game Drew Lock has ever played. And to me...
You're a big fan.
I was a big fan of Mizzou. Like, he's the first Mizzou quarterback I've ever really believed in. But something I was saying...
I mean, like Chase Daniels, the other one.
Yeah, something I was ever saying... I'm not a Gabbert fan, even in college. But something I said over and over again to people during the pre-draft process was Drew Lock, more than like any of these quarterback prospects, he truly needs a year... He needs a year to develop, and he needs to land with a good coaching staff, like a team we know can develop a quarterback. And now we have the Broncos, who haven't developed any quarterbacks in a long time. Kind of an unknown offensive coordinator, not a lot of talent on offense. And
I disagree with you there. Like, I think they do have talent.
They have talent outside for sure.
They have theoretical talent. It's very
I think
unproven.
Philip Lindsay's a good football player.
Cortland Sutton's still an unproven commodity. Deshaun Hamilton's still an unproven commodity.
Deshaun Hamilton in the slot.
So what they really have is untapped upside. We don't know if.
But I don't think the slot is where Drew Lock is going to excel. He had a hard time with simple touch passes.
He finally started making some touch passes last year. But
that's assuming Drew Lock excels anywhere. But
yeah.
Okay, let's close it out, the AFC, with the Oakland Raiders. Okay, where to start here with the Oakland Raiders? Okay, this is a team. Let me ask you all this question.
Excited for Hard Knocks.
Okay, who led the Raiders in receptions in 2018?
Oh, Jalen Richard?
Yes, Jalen Richard, running back, with 68 receptions. You also had Jared Cook with 68 receptions. No longer on the team. Jordy Nelson, 63 receptions. No longer on the team. Seth Roberts, 46. This offseason, they've added Antonio Brown. They've added Tyrell Williams. They've added Ryan Grant, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, J.J. Nelson. There is no reason at all that Jon Gruden cannot put a quality offense on the field this year. But I have major reservations if he can do that.
There's one reason.
Yeah,
His name is Derek Carr.
Say there is a reason. His name's Derek Carr.
So one, can Jon Gruden, warp into the year 2019 and actually have a modern offense? And two, is he going to be successful with Derek Carr as his quarterback?
I just don't know I don't know why they signed these guys like J.J. Nelson, Tyrell Williams that run all these they run their routes downfield, and Derek Carr is one of the worst downfield passing quarterbacks in the league. So I just don't know how this offense is going to mesh together. And they traded Kelechi Osemele, one of their best offensive linemen. So
that's almost $70 million on Trent Brown.
Yeah, I mean,
right tackle.
It all hinges on Derek Carr, is what it is.
Yeah, and he said these are Derek Carr, you said, does not excel down the field, and Jon Gruden didn't give him any chances. Like, he believes that. That was not a part of the offense last year. He did not see, maybe we'll see if he can improve as a downfield passer. He didn't give him that opportunity. Maybe you can say it's because of the talent they had. Now they have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He is on the wrong side of 30, but there's very little reason to believe Derek Carr is going to turn into the quarterback basically they need to make make this thing hit on all cylinders.
They're in a brutal division too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's early/mid-July, but is Antonio Brown just a complete fade for you?
At his price, he was for me.
I wouldn't say he is, because he can do a lot of work on like short to intermediate targets. And Jon Gruden strikes me as the kind of person who's going to want to prove a point.
Yeah.
We were not dumb for acquiring Antonio Brown, so he's going to funnel this, even if it's not smart for like the game plan. They will funnel looks to Antonio Brown.
And game script will be in their favor because they're going to be losing a lot of games. So.
And broken plays, we know that's where Antonio Brown shined.
And where Derek Carr does not shine.
Does not. That's why Jalen Richard led them in receptions last year.
So it's always a great sign for your offense when a running back and a tight end are the top two leaders in receptions, and not just a sign of a well-functioning offense.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.